So tell me why we're here.
So, I'm Megan, and I've always had a raspy lower voice. But in probably October or November, I started getting like a really grumbly, something stuck in my throat, laryngitis sounding voice, but I didn't have a sore throat. And I ignored it because I thought it was allergies or the Santa Ana winds. And then it just kept getting worse and like more dramatic sounding. And what it sounds like now is probably like 70% better than it was a week ago. And then I went to the doctor in January, on January 16th, and they prescribed me like a steroid and Flonase, and that just really didn't feel like what I needed. It didn't feel like the right thing. And so I didn't take the prescription, which is questionable judgment, but in the end it was right. And so then later that day, that night, I found out that my mom, who had been suffering from Alzheimer's for about 8 years, had a third round of cancer that was too widespread to do anything about. And also her dementia was far long enough that there was no reason to put her through the aggressive treatments that would help her. So, January 16th, first doctor's appointment, found out my mom was terminal. So, when I spoke to my aunt and uncle that night, they said she had about 1 to 4 weeks to live. So my sister Carrie and I flew from LA back to Minnesota for the weekend and said our goodbyes. And then the focus was, okay, when's my mom gonna pass away? So she passed away February 9th, and I still hadn't got my voice back at this time, and it was still getting worse. And so then there's grieving and finding a new normal. And finally, in March, I think probably like the second week of March, first week of March, I went to another general practitioner and was like, oh, this is still happening, like what the heck? And he immediately was like, well, this has been going on since November, this is out of my hands. I'm gonna give you a referral to a head and neck doctor. So the only appointment was like a month later, and that would have been like April 16th. And then I started having trouble breathing, which was kind of a new addition. I had been having a hard time going up multiple flights of stairs, which was really frustrating. As you'll learn throughout this whole thing, working out and exercise is very important to me, and I try to find new challenges in fitness all the time, and I had run a couple half marathons in the last year. So being winded going up a few flights of stairs was maybe the scariest point. So I called the specialist and was like, hey, I really need to like bump this up because now it's feeling restrictive. So they moved my appointment to, it must have been March, it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So like the first week of March. And they did the camera down through my nose, down my throat, and the doctor literally went, oh. And that was a little scary. Hearing a professional, an expert be startled by something was kind of the first sign that this is probably not super chill. So we did some blood work. All my blood work came back fine. And then she called to check up on me 2 days later, that following Friday, and I told her that the breathing was getting more difficult. And then she told me that they might have to do a tracheotomy, and that sent me kind of over the edge in terms of like being chill about this whole thing. And so she called for a stat CT scan to like figure out what the mass is, and she was positive it was a cyst. Pretty gross, But she also put the photos, which we'll link up here somewhere in the corner. We'll keep them small because they're kind of gross. She put them on like a forum for other head and neck experts, and none of them knew what it was either. And everyone was like, oh, well, it could be this, it could be that, blah, blah, blah. She was sure it was a cyst. But they still needed to operate so that I could breathe and, get it out of there. So a week ago tomorrow, March 27th, I went in for what we thought was just going to be a pretty, quick surgery. So when I was coming out of the anesthesia, I'm obviously very out of it, and the doctor says, well, you're really still, kind of coming out of it, so I'm just going to tell your husband what's going on. And it was sobering. I knew then that it was cancer. And prior to going into surgery, I had kind of tried to prep the doctor to be like, I need to know what the worst case scenario is. My mom literally died of cancer last month. And she was like, oh, no, it's fine. And maybe she did really think it was fine, and that this is really, as we've mentioned in other areas, a very rare kind of cancer that's very rarely seen. But when we were talking to her, I was like, what's the craziest thing that those other experts said on the forum? Just tell me the most wackadoodle thing that you heard so I know. And she was like, oh, well, obviously people thought it was cancer. Obviously. This one guy thought it was a very rare type of nerve cancer in the esophagus. But God, it couldn't be something very rare in the esophagus or your throat. What are the odds? That's a good question. We should figure out what the odds are of that. But, coming to, she absconds herself. My husband Collier comes back and, you got it. I got cancer. So, it's pretty scary and surreal. And what the fuck? It's of course it's cancer. Of course I have it. Why wouldn't I have cancer? So, doctors.
What do you mean by that? Why wouldn't I have cancer?
Because I was so sure that it feels like if there's something so crazy and so unusual, like this one wackadoodle doctor said, that it's this so rare, it feels just so obvious that I would end up with it. It just seems like, of course.
Because
I don't know why. It just
does it feel like you have bad luck?
I don't know if it's bad luck, but it's whatever the craziest outcome of a situation is, it feels like that's the outcome that I'm gonna get handed. It's really frustrating. But, so, my sister and my nephew and my husband were all at the hospital with me. And that was really helpful, but it still felt it felt like I was lying or being extra or exaggerating to say I have cancer. I kept saying it out loud. I was like, I have cancer. I have cancer. And it still doesn't feel very real. But, so, let's see, after surgery, I just healed for a few days and went back to work on Sunday. And, I guess Saturday I had the PET scan, which is the full body scan where they find out if there's cancer anywhere else. And I don't have cancer anywhere else, so it is just in this one area, which is right below my vocal cords. So before it was out, your vocal cords need to touch in order to manipulate the sound coming out of your, to make it, you'd be able to help you verbalize, along with your tongue and your lips, obviously, but my vocal cords weren't touching at all. So they cleared out enough so that my vocal cords could touch and that I could breathe. So I went back to work Sunday, and then yesterday, Monday the 1st, is when I got the results said it's not anywhere else. So that's really good. That made me feel that better. I was like pretty confident before that I wasn't going to die from this. Mostly I'm afraid of the discomfort, which is the big reason for this whole channel, is because I want to, like, you know, there's a lot of self-care and wellness and, you know, like, treat yourself stuff happening. And I want to document kind of troubleshooting what works for me and what doesn't throughout this. So I'm going to document the nitty-gritty stuff, the chemo, the doctor's appointments, my hair falling out, shaving. My very, very, very good friend Ashley, one of my best friends my whole life, is flying out. We're kind of guesstimating probably around the first or second chemo treatment, which is typically when the hair falls out. And she's going to give me like a real cute Natalie Portman pixie cut. And then, you know, makes the falling out easier. But along with the nitty-gritty stuff, I want to do episodes about maintaining things that are important to me. Like I mentioned, my working out. That obviously is about my physical fitness, but also like my mental fitness. I'm just happier when I exert. So, you know, and also over the years, I've tried different diets, and maybe, I think it's probably like 5 years I've lost. I mean, it's gone up and down like weight does, but I used to weigh 222 pounds. And so I've lost quite a bit of weight. I'm at like 178 this morning. So it's going to be interesting tracking my weight loss in a different way. But there's all this research about keto making chemotherapy a more comfortable experience. So I want to explore those options and share it with you guys. And also I think this is a really excellent way to utilize modern technology to keep friends and family up to date and informed, and seeing the vulnerability without just, oh my God, thank you, that means so much, because those messages are true when I send them, but it can be really draining for me to answer every question from every text message and every Facebook message. And not that I don't want to, because I know that it means that people are concerned and they care. It just is, it takes it's draining. And I want to be able to have people see the genuine response and actually see how I'm doing. So I've got another friend who's an acupuncturist who's gonna do some treatment on me during the other treatment to help with the symptoms of chemotherapy. And I've had a friend who does yoga that we're going to talk about maintaining yoga practice through a really physically strenuous treatment. And then, like, wig shopping and not looking like an old lady in a wig. So, I mean, also, I'm kind of excited about exploring CBD because I get real paranoid with THC, and I don't enjoy it, but I'm in California, and it feels like the right place to kind of figure out what CBD doesn't make me a paranoid freak, but will also aid in the soothing of the discomfort. But yeah, if you have any questions or things you want to see me try or products you want to suggest, I am here for it. I wanna try the things that your aunt in Maine tried that helped her save her eyebrows. I'm not as concerned about the hair. I'm really worried about the eyebrows. But yeah, we set up a GoFundMe, and we'll link that down here if we can figure out how to do that. Having cancer is really expensive, and even with health insurance through my employer, we're still looking at really hefty copays, and that's really daunting. And especially if we're trying to figure out what this really rare cancer is, I'm afraid that it's going to be a little more intense, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, after this, my husband Collier and I are gonna go work out. I'm gonna run and then do some lifting, and we'll kind of like do like a quick montage through that. But we're gonna check in about how I'm feeling physically, and I kind of want that to be like a regular check-in throughout this to kind of to set a norm for like, okay, yeah, now I can't do this. Now I can't do these lifts. I can't run a few miles. For science and entertainment. But anyway, I hope you join us on this journey, and maybe we'll all learn something.
What does your shirt say?
Oh yeah, that's funny. I didn't even realize I was wearing this. This says, I wear it so often it's faded. It says, "Be the Leslie Knope of whatever you do." This was a gift to me from our friend Erin after the 2016 election. I just was shook. And so she sent me this hoodie, and as you can see, I've worn it and washed it and stained it, but I didn't really mean to wear that in this, but I think it's the right attitude for this.